you doing? You shy? Say hi. Hey.
Mama.
All right. Story time. I actually spoke about this on my stream last night when we were winding down at like the fourth hour just before I cut it off. Someone had asked a question about my second verse Danny Myers, and I had completely forgotten that there was a pretty wild story I don't think I ever told the public. I told them on that stream. It's still up, but it's like embedded into a really long stream. It's not specific, so let's be specific and let's do some story time, ladies and gentlemen. So in the first round that I had for Danny Myers, I actually did something that would go against usually what I advise battle rappers, or at least try to explain to fans. That is one of the worst things you could do. Go tit for tat with somebody's wheelhouse. If you're an angler, if you're battling an angler, don't use angles. If you're battling a puncher, don't try to outpunch him. If you're battling a schemer, don't try to out-scheme him. The problem with that is when you do try to do that, if you are not up to par with that artist, you are going to shine a light on his best attributes. So if you're trying to punch with Rum Nitty and you're not punching that well, and then Rum Nitty starts punching, even as incredible as his ability is, you're going to make it look that much better. You're going to lose momentum. You're going to lose the crowd, the whole nine, right? When I had first decided to battle Danny, I wanted to outpunch him. I want to outpunch him in the first round. And to be honest, my first round versus Danny is actually insane. We traded a pretty equal round. I actually think I edged him out in that first, but I was going punch crazy, man. I had a great luck in finding good punches. Usually, if you're pressed for time, or sometimes you're not as creative, it's hard. It's hard. Sometimes your pen doesn't want to be as good as your potential, and there's nothing you could do about that, especially when the clock is ticking. Now, the clock wasn't ticking with me by the time I was done writing the first round, and I thought it was a very strong first round. So that's when I decided to come up with the angle. Now I know what you're thinking. The second round versus Danny. That's the angle. Nope. Nope. That actually wasn't. There was supposed to be an angle and a round that I was going to do that I don't think I have ever said publicly until now. So let's talk about it. And this is actually the round that birthed the second round. My second round wouldn't exist if I didn't scrap this first idea. Danny Myers, before he got the respect that he has now, and to be honest, he could have got the respect back then. Danny Myers was really hated on. I would say like hated on slash clowned. A lot of people would make fun of his setups. And although he does have weird setups, he does have pretty ridiculous ones even today. I think it's just a staple of Danny Myers. He's just going to do that. He's so creative that sometimes he kind of over creates. So back then it used to be a meme to make fun of the way he set up bars. And sometimes he had some parallel universe ones that just did not hit. And then there were a couple people online that picked it apart, and it became, a funny thing, right? That Danny Myers has some bad setups. Now, ironically, this is a parallel. Danny Myers has bad setups, and I get called police all the time, right? I always wanted to do an angle with the police thing, even though my last name is Policey. I get how it's spelled out. And then it's like I'm also in the hip hop world. So it's very easy to point at me and call me the police. So I had come up with an angle, quite an angle. I went on Amazon and I had ordered an FBI outfit, like a mock FBI outfit, either from Amazon or partycity.com or something. But I had ordered an outfit to be an FBI agent. But it was not going to be the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I was going to be a federal bar investigator. The entire concept of this round was going to consist of me arresting Danny Myers, and every single whack line that he's said in his career was going to be used as a charge against him. Yes, it was going to be somewhere along the lines of like, I was going to start out like, oh man, everyone always call me police. I got a confession to make. I actually am the police, but I'm actually the FBI. I'm a federal bar investigator. I was going to say, put your hands behind your back. This is what you're charged of. And what I was going to do is I was going to take actual quotes. I was going to take actual quotes from Danny Myers, bad bars that he has said, and I was going to ring them off as charges. So I was basically going to arrest Danny, and I was going to charge him with being garbage. Now, here's the thing with certain angles or certain approaches that you take. When the clock is ticking, sometimes you have to get lucky. And when I had came up with this idea, I thought it was amazing. I had ordered the outfit. I got the outfit. And I was probably 8 to 12 bars in until something happened that I know happens normally with me sometimes. I don't know if this happens with most artists, but sometimes you have an idea in your head and you think it's good. And then halfway into it, quarter way into it, you realize that there is no reward at the end. There's no real punch. There's no real point. There's no real ending to what you have started. And as I was starting to write this angle out and I was starting to write this round out, I hit a block. I hit writer's block because I couldn't find a way to end it. I couldn't find a way to bring it all in. It was sounding good. It was funny at times. It was sounding right. But I kept thinking the more I kept going, it was becoming increasingly harder to be creative about it. And then as I'm looking at the clock, I have about a week and a half to go. I usually write rounds. This is exactly how I craft a battle. If I know I'm about to battle, whatever time there is before there's 3 weeks left, that is the time I spend on ideas, on punchlines, angles, approaches. What am I going to do in the first? What am I going to do in the second? What am I going to do in the third? I do not start writing until there is usually 3 weeks left. And what happens is when there's 3 weeks left, I spend a week on the first. When there's 2 weeks left, I spend a week on the second. And then battle week is where I usually write my third round. I got about a week and a half to go. I have one round, and I have a quarter of a round, a tenth of a round, with an angle that I invested so much time into that is now starting to crumble in front of me. So I panicked. I didn't know what to do. I don't watch my opponents. I don't like to watch my opponents' battles. The only time I really watch my opponents is to smell blood. I know a lot of people will watch their opponents to try to get material out of them. We'll try to see how they did and maybe rap about it, take a line that they said and talk about it. I watch my opponents, and I know this is something to psych me out subconsciously. I will watch opponents to see their weak points. It's a weird thing that I do to make me smell blood. It makes me sense weakness, and it makes me want to go after them even more, right? And I haven't done it in a long time, but I needed to do it with Danny. I was desperate. I know how vicious of a puncher he is. I had a strong first, but I'm playing with fire, right? Just because I have a strong first doesn't mean I can out punch Danny Myers. And I watched a battle of his randomly. And probably about 2 days before, him versus Hollow had came out. And I watched it. And I watched it trying to get some type of feeling of, okay, maybe he was weak. Maybe this is something I could take advantage of. And then I heard him talk. I heard him do an angle. I heard him be very personal. I heard him expose things about his personal life. And then I said parallel. In my head, I said parallel. And then it clicked. I thought, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a parallel approach. And I'm going to use it based off the material that I heard versus Hal the Don. And the rest was history. I crafted that round. I crafted it in a really short amount of time. And I know a lot of people usually ask me, how long did it take me to write that round? Way shorter than you'd think. And that happens like that. You know, you can't just sit down and decide to be extremely creative. Sometimes it's a slow drip. And then sometimes you got to write down the lines because your mind is going over them because they can't stop coming up with creative lines. The second I got that angle, the second I matched the parallels, the second I did the slogans and I started tying everything together, it just snowballed. But the fact of the matter is, you would have never seen that round if I hadn't have come up with the angle to be a federal bar investigator and arrest Danny Myers for being trash. There's a couple people in the chat that questioned this last night, and I want to know in the comment section, do you think that would have worked? Now, I know it wouldn't have topped the second round, but if I had done that, the second round would have never happened. And what's crazy is if I had thought about the second round first, I would have went over the top and did the prop in the third round. But it was the fact that I went for the prop first before I ever thought about that angle. And then it was the writer's block of that angle that forced me to go somewhere else. And I mean, miracle shit, right? I turned, I didn't know what to do. And that round fell in my lap. That round fell in my lap. And yeah, the rest was history. But let me know in the comment section if you think that would have worked. In a perfect world, I outpunch him in the first, I go crazy in the second, and I arrest him in the third for being trash. But unfortunately, that didn't go down. Fortunately, it birthed the second. But yeah, I was gonna arrest him.